What's going on, guys? This is a rather unusual start for a Travel Dash video because we're in vlog format right now, but that's because this is a very interesting thing that's going on right now. We're in Norway, dude, back in Europe. I'm so excited to be here. This time we're going to be really seeing more of the country, doing some hiking, and we've got a 3-day train adventure. That's all I know. Everything else was up to the planning of this guy's father. This is Josiah. Now, the only other time you've been at a Travel Dash video, I believe, was Stone Mountain in Georgia.
Yeah.
This is exciting, dude.
Dude, we're stoked. We're here in Norway. Like he said, we're not sure what we're doing, but my dad just put us on a train and said, go with the flow.
As someone who typically always does the planning and booking for these trips, it was very unusual how our itinerary was entirely out of my control this time around. And I was initially a bit worried by this, thinking we'd be missing so much of what makes Norway such a highly regarded country for natural scenery. However, during these 3 days, we were able to see a shocking amount of incredible places in such a short duration of time. Better yet, this was done all without a vehicle, relying specifically on public transportation to get us from point A to point B. And even crazier is there was technically no hiking involved whatsoever. You'll see what I mean in a bit here, and I cannot wait to share this all with you as our stay in Norway vastly exceeded expectations. But first, let me rewind and provide some context as to why we're in Europe to begin with. This is the start of a greater than 6-week trip across the continent that is predominantly focused around theme parks, as my other YouTube channel Coaster Dash focuses precisely on that subject. However, there are some outdoorsy bits thrown in to give variety, and we chose Norway specifically since flying Los Angeles to Oslo was the cheapest way to get anywhere on the continent. Then, once you're in Europe, flying from one country to another is surprisingly very cheap. Upon arriving in Oslo, Josiah's father Dave dropped that we were going to be off on a 3-day train adventure that would stop at a variety of places on the way to Bergen, where we'd eventually end up and fly out of to get to the United Kingdom for theme parks. This would take us through the Scandinavian mountain range, or the Scandies in short, which comes right up against the Norwegian Sea, forming the fjords that the country is very well known for. On a map, you can clearly see that Norway encapsulates the majority of these mountains, although Sweden, as well as a sliver of northern Finland, contains them as well. My hope, knowing that we were now going through this region, was that we'd be able to see at least one huge fjord and some enormous waterfalls. Anything else would just be extra. The train ride, known as the Bergen Railroad, spans nearly 7 hours and costs roughly 1,200 Norwegian krone, or $110 per person. Our focus the night of our flight was to get to the town of Nesbyen, where our first activity would take place. We explored the town on bikes before sleeping that night, and it didn't even occur to me that Dave had rented bikes specifically for the purpose of what was scheduled the following morning.
This blue line is one of Europe's longest machine-built trails. Tomorrow morning we're going to get a ride up to the top, and then we're going to ride along this ridge, get some spectacular views. And starting about here, it's pretty much a straight down shot, but if you go slow, you shouldn't die.
All right, that sounds exciting.
So you can imagine my confusion. I was under the impression that the Airbnb owner for that night's accommodation just had bikes sitting around that we could use, but no, it was very meticulously planned that we'd be using them to ride down the longest flow trail in the entirety of Northern Europe. HallingSpranget, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, is considered family friendly, though considering it was my first time ever mountain biking, I found it to be pretty crazy in some spots. It spans 10.5 miles from the top of Fjord, a huge mountain right outside town, all the way down to Nesbyen. In addition to having bike rentals, you need to take a shuttle to the start of the trail, and of course our Airbnb owner had a business where he does just that. It was all starting to make sense to me. We got started super early in the morning, and it was absolutely freezing at the top of that mountain. But there is a pretty brutal uphill climb at the beginning that got me warmed up, and this is basically the only serious elevation gain the entire ride. I mean, the point of a flow trail is you're supposed to be able to make your way down the trail with only the help of gravity, though it wasn't entirely true as there was some short sections that contradicted this. But I personally found the majority of the bike ride to be extremely relaxing and a ton of fun. Whenever there was a steep downhill, I loved feeling the breeze from how fast we seemed to be blazing. That said, you have to be careful around the turns and whenever there's a sign stating an especially dangerous section is coming up. I did end up eating it a handful of times, but each time I got back up and felt stronger and more accustomed to biking because of it. And the views all the way were spectacular, with a perfect mixture of riding through stunning alpine forests and meadows along with expansive grand overlooks of the landscape. I put together a short compilation of some of my favorite moments along the way so you can get an idea of what it's like to do this.
Are y'all seeing how green it is out here? Oh my god. Oh! Wow. Dude, you're joking me. Oh my god, I almost ate so much shit. I think we're about halfway through. Josiah, this has been crazy.
Dude, look at the views. It's actually ridiculous. No, it's actually crazy. Guys, you probably can't even see on Superview, but down there, that bridge, where that little red thing is, we walked across that yesterday, and you can actually probably, yeah, you can see our Airbnb, dude. Right
Yeah,
there.
you can.
That's
literally town.
dude. That's
It's still
awesome.
so far down, too.
Dude, we have a ways.
Dude, those big dips are so fun. Dude, are you kidding me? That was absolutely ridiculous. Minus the fact that I ate shit. That was one of the coolest outdoor experiences I have ever had. What a impression to Norway. I mean, we're just getting started here, but absolutely unbelievable.
Directly after we finished, we rushed back to Nesbyen station to continue on the Bergen Railway. This is where Dave told us what was next on our agenda, and it was not at all what I was expecting.
All right, so we're getting on the train here. Okay, we're gonna go about 2 hours this way up. You guys saw those mountains from the top of the, like all those mountain peaks? We should be going up over those mountain peaks. And then we're gonna stop after about 2 hours and get on a different train. Okay, and it's called the Flåm Railway. The Flåm Railway was recognized as one of the world's 25 most beautiful train rides by the Society of International Railway. The National Geographic magazine mentioned the Flåm Railway on their list of top 10 train rides in Europe, and the Lonely Planet Traveler recognized the railway as the world's best train ride.
Riding into the alpine wilderness was surreal, as there seemed to be water absolutely everywhere. There were so many lakes of varying colors, rivers and creeks, skinny waterfalls flying off of the mountains, and it was great seeing snow for the first time in a whole year. We proceeded to Myrdal station to transfer onto another train, one that had been acclaimed around the world for its incredibly impressive scenery. The Flåm Railway is a 12-mile ride meticulously designed to provide exceptional views on the way to the town of Flåm, which sits at the end of one of the legs of the longest fjord not only in Norway, but the longest on Earth outside of Greenland. Indeed, the views were absolutely great, and I also got to check off one of my 2 requirements this trip to Norway, and that was seeing massive waterfalls. You descend down a mountain and stop pretty early on at an observation platform for Kjosfossen. I was surprised to see that they literally let you out for a few minutes so that you can get a nice glimpse of what was an outstanding cascade. Its cumulative height is 225 meters or 738 feet, which is ridiculously high. However, there were a few things that honestly did take away from our experience here. First was the overcrowding that made it very difficult to get any good photos or videos, and certainly any peace and quiet. But to make matters worse, because of how touristy the train ride is, there was this weird, random performance of a lady dancing near the middle of the falls to this Norwegian cultural music. When the latter came on, I was thinking, you know, that's fine, it doesn't add or take away much from the falls, so I was pretty neutral about it. But whatever happened after that was totally cringe and unnecessary. Not necessarily the dance itself, but the fact that it took place during your only 5 minutes at this incredibly impressive waterfall where the onslaught of people already make it difficult to appreciate it. Fortunately, it was the only stop along the way, which I was pleased about, and the only part I felt indifferent about. Other highlights were all these incredibly tall, skinny waterfalls coming down the sides of the mountains, something that would be a reoccurring theme that day. I also love that the train track was built right along a river, as the crystal clear turquoise water is very beautiful. But overall, I did really like this experience. However, it did necessitate a hefty fee of 700 Norwegian krona or $65 per person, which would have been worth it if not for all the other incredible sights and things to do in the country that I still preferred. I wouldn't quite say it was a trip highlight, but still try to do it if you can, especially if it means you get to do our next big activity, which does require you to get to the town of Flåm anyway. Next up, we'll answer the question of why we decided to head to Flåm, aside from the fact that it's where the railway took us to. The answer lies entirely in the aforementioned Sognefjord, arguably the most prominent fjord in the entire country of Norway. We were surprised with an unbelievable 2-hour boat ride through some of the most dramatic parts of it, and right away, I have to put this out there, this was my favorite thing we did this trip to Norway, and one of my favorite experiences ever in Europe. For those of you who aren't 100% sure what a fjord is exactly, it's a long, narrow inlet of the sea between high cliffs. Obviously, these can vary greatly in size and shape, but nevertheless, this country has more fjords than any other by far. What was great about this tour was it seemed to get better and better as time progressed. At first, there would be a waterfall every now and then, but eventually they came in rapid succession and the cliffs got substantially taller and more dramatic. It's one of those things that I struggle to find appropriate words to describe, however, I could not stop picking up my camera and taking videos, so I'll go ahead and let the footage speak for itself once again.
Alright, we're just now wrapping up our fjord boat cruise, and that was unbelievable. Norway has just cemented itself as one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been in after that. That was hands down my favorite thing we've done in the country so far, and I think it'll be very hard to top. But what'd you think, dude?
I agree with Mark. That's been the best so far of the whole trip, actually. That was incredible.
Guys, truly, Sognefjord was an insanely impressive natural landmark that I could not recommend enough. It was well worth the approximately 650 Norwegian krona or $60 per person. And it was super convenient for us in that the boat ride was one way from Flåm to a town called Vossevangen, which is substantially closer to where we needed to be by the end of the night. So we hopped on a bus right where we got off, and like any normal person, I was absolutely convinced that this would be an average journey. Instead, the bus actually stops off at this hotel where supposedly there would be this incredible overlook that you're allowed up to 15 minutes to explore. The accommodation is called Stalheim, and I kid you not, this viewpoint was so incredible it reminded me of Tunnel View at Yosemite National Park. There were all these crazy rock formations, including a rounded one that just looks like it's jutting out of the ground. Then way in the back you have this waterfall which acts as a perfect centerpiece to the scene. Considering I had no idea we were even going to see this, I was completely in awe and could not believe this was what a typical pull-off viewpoint looks like in Norway. Anyway, back on topic, we made the rest of the trek to the town of Voss, and all I knew about Voss is that it's the extreme sports capital of the country. This was the only hint Dave would give us until we woke up the next morning, so I was just eager to find out what it was at that point.
Before I tell you what we're doing, I know it's kind of brisk outside. The place is going to give us wetsuits, but Voss is home to 2 world-class rivers with class 4 rapids.
I told you!
So we are gonna go whitewater rafting.
I knew it! I know, what did I say in the elevator?
You said it.
Dude, she's such a bad liar. Mom is such a bad liar, dude.
Whitewater rafting is something I had never done before, and when I learned how insane class 4 was supposed to be, I was horrified. We took a half-an-hour walk from our accommodation the previous night across town to Voss Active. This already took us through some absolutely gorgeous mountain scenery to start our day. Then once we got in, we had to check in, sign some waivers, and get into wetsuits.
This is gonna be ridiculous. My first time rafting ever, dude.
That's incredible.
From there, you hop on a bus where they shuttle you over about 30 minutes to an absolutely incredible turquoise river. It's as picture perfect as it gets, but before you can begin rafting on the water, you have to take a swim test in the water. In my opinion, it was extremely simple, even though it's a little stressful having everyone watch you. You'll hop on with the rest of your group and will be met by your guide. For us, it was Yannick, both a super funny guy who's passionate about the sport of rafting and communicates clearly what you need to know going into your rafting experience. Having said that, I find it hard to believe anything bad could happen. They did say rafts tip over every now and then, but we never really even came close, and Yannick did a great job redirecting us in the correct direction when needed. But overall, he said we were a fantastic group when it came to paddling, which was reassuring. Right at the beginning, there was a pretty substantial drop or cascade that I found to be an exciting start to our time on the water. There were a lot of time between these waterfalls where the water was calm and you were just slowly moving through the terrain, which is absolutely breathtaking. During the middle of our journey, we went through this absolutely wild, almost 2-layered cascade that felt surprisingly intense and thrashed us around a lot. It was so much fun getting to experience things like this, and it's what's enticing me to put more whitewater rafting on my to-do list, particularly over in the United States. 3/4 of the way in, there was a waterfall that, due to water levels, may have potentially been dangerous to traverse, so they actually had us get out and cliff jump back into the water, which was also a first for me. I ended up finding this a highlight of the day. It was just such an adrenaline kick and felt so freeing, and I'd once again love to do more cliff jumping in the future. Now that we were back in the water, we had the option from this point to get back in the raft or swim around until we reached the end. My entire group went for the latter, and even though the water was freezing cold, it was a beautiful time. Then, just like that, our whitewater rafting experience was over, despite the fact that it felt like it had just started. I guess time really does fly when you're having fun.
Let's go! Let's go, viewers! We're about to go rafting in Norway. Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! Let's go, dude! Let's go! Look at the scenery around here, dude. Are you kidding me right now? Oh no! Oh no! It's off! Oh! And back to position! Back to position! And forward! No, please no! Come on! It's a wrap! I can't see. What do you think is the highest ever paddled waterfall? Oh my God! Oh my God!
Man, that was so fun. That was definitely one of my favorite things we did in Norway. I think I slightly still prefer the Fjord tour, but that's like number 2 for me. I loved it so much. Shout out Yannick too, great guide.
It was awesome. Pretty short run, but like really fun with some of the rapids in there. No one went overboard. That was good.
Yeah, I can't believe that I did so well considering that was my first time. That was great, dude.
To wrap up our train ride across Norway, we came up on Bergen, a city with a metro population of nearly 500,000 people, making it the second largest city in the country. While we had a great time exploring the Scandinavian buildings and historical sites, we wanted to end things out in a bang by climbing to the top of one of Bergen's city mountains, called Fløyfjellet. Its peak reaches heights greater than 1,000 feet or 320 meters and offers a magnificent panoramic view of the city and its surroundings. Now, I know I said it at the beginning of the video that nothing on our agenda necessarily requires any hiking, and the reason that still is true is because visitors have the option to take a funicular to the overlook from Bergen and back. However, we personally vouched to do the hike in order to save a little money and because we hadn't done any thus far on the trip. While I couldn't find any specific metrics online, the trail probably spanned 4 miles round trip, nothing too horribly difficult, although the elevation gain was brutal going up at times. Something I loved about this hike was the fact that the trees would open up every now and then, providing small peeks of the view that would only get more impressive as you progress to the top. There would also be a couple benches for you to take a breather on, which was certainly needed. All in all, the overlook was more than worth the effort as it was vastly superior to what I was expecting. Keep in mind, it was a last-minute idea to come here as we only noticed the viewpoint as we were walking around Bergen. The second we saw that, everyone in our group agreed that we should try to get up there, and not only did I enjoy the panorama, it was astounding, but also the experience of getting there was fun. It was a great conclusion to Norway, a country I won't soon forget, and hope to travel within further moving into the future. It also marked an incredible first leg of this greater than 6-week-long trip. For those of you who'd like to follow along, even if you do not share the same interests, I'll be posting about all of our theme park adventures on my other channel, Coaster Dash. And if you are only into the hiking side of things, well then there's still much more to come as we briefly make a return trip to the Swiss Alps and for the first time see the French Alps as well. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe to Travel Dash for more content like this in the future. I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.